I wrote this lecture as a part of the course HNR 340, Making in the Maid, which is offered through the Renee Crown Honors Program at Syracuse University. It has been presented in 3 parts as 3 separate videos on YouTube. This is the final part. We are talking in these videos about plywood as a material, but more importantly, we are talking about plywood as a cultural indicator. Following World War II, initial house sizes remained small because that's what everyone knew from before the war. But as plywood made size increase possible, square footage becomes a bragging point. At the end of the 20th century, houses got bigger, and they got bigger faster. Here's the floor plate for one such suburban home that was being built in about 2010. Look at the size of that. That is a massive house. The problem is that humans don't get bigger, so they start to feel absurdly small in these giant spaces. Take this living room, for example. This is a pretty normal living room in a large suburban house. In houses that are between 2,000 and 2,900 square feet in America, the average living room size is now about 600 square feet. You'll remember that in 1900, the average house for a family of 4 was only 900 square feet. So we've moved to a place in which the living room alone is more than half the size of an entire house just 100 years ago. So the furniture has to get bigger because the space is bigger, and we don't want the furniture to look dwarfed in this increasingly larger space. What happens then is the humans seem tiny in comparison. Look at this sectional. 2 people sitting in this sectional would have an easier time talking on the phone to each other than having a conversation in person. Take a look at this armchair manufactured by the Wolf Furniture Company. It's obscenely big, isn't it? Big. And it's not even particularly functional as a chair. It's almost a bed. A full-size mattress is 54 inches by 75 inches, and this is 65 inches by 42 inches. It's not that much smaller. This chair and other chairs like it are so deep that 2 or even 3 cushions are required simply to be able to sit in them without looking like a toddler. In addition to larger furniture, we start to have even more furniture. As the bedrooms get larger and larger, that we start to see all kinds of things. In addition to a bed and some kind of storage, we see chairs, even tables, footstools, ottoman. We have all this square footage, so we feel a compulsion to fill it, which results in us buying more objects, many of which we never even use. Think about it. Is this person likely to ever sit in those chairs and read a book? Would you? Me either. I've got this giant living room to do that in. So, where have we come over the course of this lecture? Well, the plywood that was used in World War II to build just about everything, actually, was repurposed when the GI Bill was signed into law and used to build the newly invented suburbs, which were filled by mostly white returning veterans, leading to white flight in almost every city in America. So the space available to build the suburbs allowed for larger houses, so the median size of a house in this country expanded rapidly, which has led to more and bigger furniture just to keep everything looking proportionate. And what's the point? Well, the point is that something as prosaic as plywood can radically change not just how we think about how we live, but whether or not we live justly and fairly. It's unchecked and thoughtless growth that is damaging, not the plywood itself. Materials and objects are essentially neutral, but our application of them is not. We keep coming back to this idea that context is everything, and that the object and the space are tied to our economic and social and political responsibilities. Nothing, including ourselves, exists in a vacuum. Examining any one part of this complex web invites us to investigate all of the ramifications and to think about our part in them. We could just as easily have started with the water wheel, gone to the jacquard loom, then to punch cards, then to computers, and our tendency towards social isolation and prescriptive experiences, which is eroding our ability to choice-make in a critical way. Or early metallurgy, to the invention of chemistry and physics, the creation of celluloid, the first plastic, then to disposable food wrapping in the Pacific Gyre. I only chose plywood because you know me, I love wood. The big question here is this. Given that these complex and beautiful and beautifully terrifying webs exist, how do you want to interface with them? The relationships are there. What you cannot do is not be a part of them. We're all part of them by default. So what will you do with that information?